So you'll have seen the news that Martin Odegaard has gone off injured after playing in the international break. That happened literally in the last hour. Calafiori's come back early because of a bit of a freak incident in what is a set of internationals that no one wants, no one needs. And now we're all frustratingly having to react to the news that we might have our best midfield three out for the North London derby. Anyway, I want to discuss it all with my good friend, Alex from the Different Knock, who you all know. Alex, how are you, mate?
What's great? Please keep applauding. What's great, James? Just the whole stream. What's exciting, James, is that everyone loves the Nations League. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at least it was worth it for the brilliant football. And we can all name all the winners in the Nations League. We've all got great memories of the Nations League. We all watch the Nations League, of course. It's obviously not just a cash grab by UEFA and FIFA. So, I think at least it was for a worthwhile cause.
Yes.
I think that's what I feel. I'm really proud of that. Okay, we may have lost our captain and the foundation of our off the ball work for the North London derby, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. At least we got some brilliant Nations League football. That's what I care about, James.
Can't even keep a straight face. Oh, look at big up Max.
Just for the avoidance of doubt, that was sarcasm. Just for the avoidance.
Show some love for Max in the comments. Alex, thank you.
We all love the Nations League.
Yeah, we all love the Nations League. We obviously do. Firstly, thank you for joining. I super appreciate it. I was just going to go live and rant, but I thought, you know what? You're going to help me see this clearly. And I know that we're going to, we've got things to get off our chest. But I also don't want this to just be me just going, throwing my toys out the pram. Even though that's very much how I'm feeling right now. So you've got a job which to keep me grounded in all this. I feel like you might also want to do a bit of But let's try and make sense of this. Here's why Arsenal fans are upset right now. I think there's two sides to it. There's the Arsenal fan in me that is, we are going to have Odegaard, Rice and Merino. It's very likely, you can very safely make the assumption that we're going to have all three out for the game on Sunday. Well, we know Rice and Merino are two probably best physical profiles in the squad. And by the way, I don't care if he's not kicked a ball for us. We know he is already. Rice and Merino out for what is our biggest away game of the season, certainly in stature, but okay, you've probably got City, which is the week after. Odegaard will probably miss both. That's our captain. Atalanta's been wedged in there. That'll be a fun trip. So there's the Arsenal stress side of things. But then there's the Arsenal, then there's a football fan side of it, which is me going, who wants these games? Who wants these games? Why are they playing them? And I've tried so hard. I was away last week. I tried so hard just to not really comment on this and just let football happen. There's nothing I can do about it. But I'm just at a point where it's like, we've just seen them slog it out over a tournament. We don't need an international break 3 weeks in. And after Odegaard clearly struggled against Brighton with injury, and there's lots of reports that he still wasn't okay, played 90 minutes the other day in an international, and now he's come off injured. And to be fair, what was an injury that could have happened regardless of everything that's happened in the last week or two. He's twisted his ankle, and we're going to be starting a 17-year-old in the North London derby.
Well, firstly, I think it's okay to we're football fans, right? We're all emotional people, and we all care about this stuff. It's all right to be there doesn't always have to be this let's be sensible. You don't have to be your dad for the whole. We could all be that's really annoying. So that there is that thing which we should come to, and I want to talk about the internationals. If we are talking solutions, I think
are we there yet?
Project...
I'm not emotionally.
Oh no.
I need to cry more.
Okay, well let's stick on that. We'll come to solutions later.
Okay.
What is the point of these internationals? Straight. Well, we know what the point is. But the thing is, there's a wider conversation here, James. I don't know if you saw the Kevin De Bruyne comments. I don't know if you saw the Bernardo Silva comments. Ultimately, players are Virgil van Dijk said something recently. Players are waking up to the fact that they are being, and I don't honestly. There were people watching and saying, "Well, if you paid me £300,000 a week, It doesn't work like that. They could be paid £1 billion a week. Their bodies still have a capacity. We're all humans. It doesn't matter what you're paid. You have a capacity, and you can feel what your body is capable of doing, what it isn't capable of doing, and they can feel their bodies at the absolute limit, right? I mean, it's all money. That's all it is. It's just greed. It's just greed. The FIFA Club World Cup, the UEFA, the Nations League, the Euros in the summer, the friendlies, the qualifiers, the expanded Champions Leagues, the expanded the different seeding in the Carabao Cups to get more. They are just rinsing these guys absolutely dry, and that is part of what's frustrating about this. People can get injured, right? But when it's against a backdrop of FIFA and UEFA evidently not caring about the stars of the show, because that's what the footballers are. They're the stars. They are the protagonists of the sport. If you listen to any great manager, all the Peps and the Klopps and the Artetas, the guys who really understand the sport and really care and love the sport in the way that we do, obviously on a very different intellectual level, understanding level, but we hopefully love the sport in the same way that we do, right? They all say this is not sustainable. This is not okay. But they also say these are the protagonists. And what you're doing here is you're hurting the protagonists. That's all you're doing. You're reducing their careers. You're giving Jude Bellingham, how many thousands of minutes. But I had a stat the other day. Ray Parlour played 39,000 career minutes. Do you know how many Rice has played?
No. Go on.
I think something like 28,000.
Oh, bloody hell.
Like, it's absolutely mad. The amount of minutes that people are playing before they're due time is absolutely mental. And these, look, this, you could isolate this incident as a key incident. As an isolated incident and go, okay, well, it's a freak accident, whatever, get over it. But there's a wider picture here of FIFA and UEFA evidently prioritizing profit over player welfare. Evidently, there's no doubt about that, which is what frustrates people so much, because it's not like, sometimes accidents happen, but when these things happen and it feels like there's no one really going, okay, how do we deal with that on a wider scale, then it's a huge concern. So there's that aspect of it. I mean, there's loads of other aspects of it, just the pointless friendlies, the why these even needed to be a competition, why we're here 3 weeks into the season already breaking up the flow of the Premier League. It's like anything. You see people do it with, sorry, I'm ranting. You see people do it with companies, or see people do it when they have something that works with like a product. They'll try and maximize the product. They'll go, right, well, that product works there, so I'm going to absolutely expand it out into every single possible direction. And then you end up losing your main thing. What you'll do in the end of 10, 15 years of this is you'll wash out the Premier League, because you'll have all these players who are done by 28. What's the point? What is the point?
Yeah, I think you're so right to bring up the players. De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva have been very outspoken. And I'm glad it's those two, because they're doing it from a position of having won and done it all. Like De Bruyne is now in his 30s. I think he's got every right with what he's achieved in the game, the minutes he's played, the various countries he's played in, the various clubs he's played for. He's someone you're going to listen to, right? It's not coming from a player you're thinking, oh, he's having a whinge, even though some would still say that about others. I think, and this is, and then by the way, that's coming from players who have played for a club, who have had a good squad and good talent that can come in for their positions and play anyway. Yet there's still a real strong feeling. I mean, Ilkay Gundogan, when the Super League stuff was mentioned, I think it was Gundogan who tweeted saying, "Look, glad we've kind of stood up for this, but the new Champions League format isn't really much better." Now, I was reacting to the new Champions League format when we found out the 8 games we were going to play. And I said, look, as a competition, this sounds great. Like, it really does. I really like the makeup of the competition, how it can look from a consumer perspective. But there was the concerns of the players that was mentioned. And I also, while I say all this, I also want to stress that some people will be saying, well, we should have pulled Odegaard out. We should have pulled Calafiori out immediately. We should have, and I think you retweeted a tweet from a year ago about City and Liverpool being great at that. And I completely agree. Only it's hard to know for a Martin Odegaard, like, it probably means the world for him to play, for Norway and want to sort of go out there and play. So if he had a knock or he had a slight injury, we're all going, well, North London Derby. He's like, no. I want to carry my nation through these competitions, and I want to, give my best for them and get myself on the pitch for them as much as I do for Arsenal. And I do think it's important remembering that too. But there's definitely a player welfare thing here that's really imbalanced.
Yeah, and there's a conversation about Arsenal culturally. Like we love our club, right? Because we feel like we're a classy club. Like I feel like most fans of Arsenal would be like, if someone from outside the sport was like, okay, what's different between Chelsea and Arsenal? You'd be like, well, it feels like we try and do the right thing. We try and have good characters. It's not mercenaries who are just coming in for the money. We like to think that players play for the badge. You know, it's that sort of thing, right?
Sure.
But what you do there is you naturally attract people like Martin Odegaard, who are going to want to play for their country, going to want to captain, going to want to be honest, going to want to, okay, well, I can play. Actually, it is incumbent on the club, if they want to be serious at the very, very top level, to do what Liverpool and City have done over the last 5-10 years, which is pull players out. A year ago, actually, it was the 4th of September or maybe the 6th of September 2023, Jack Grealish and Trent pull out of the England friendlies that would have been happening these 2 weeks with nothing, with whatever. We never do that. We almost never do that. And we have to get, if you want to get serious at the top level, you need to be able to sort of be versed in those kind of dark arts. However, now Martin Odegaard could have got injured in a training session. Calafiori could have got injured in a training session. The point is, I think there's a wider swimming pool this is all happening in, which is a concern about players playing a million games. That is the concern, and the frustration, and I think a lot of the anger about it is, yes, of course, it's about what's going to happen in the North London derby and against City and so on and so forth, and we'll come to the solutions in a second. But the frustration is it doesn't feel like we're doing everything possible to avoid these types of things happening, and they're meaningless games. They're meaningless. Do you know what I mean? They really are, and that's what exacerbates the problem. It's like you know, like I remember I had a friend who it was in Reading Academy. He might have made it, but he was like running over his shoulder to catch like a ball his brother had thrown, went over a chair, broke his leg, career over. And it's like, okay, well, you can break your leg, but in the garden with your brother, it just feels so meaningless and pointless. And that's the feeling. It's like, oh, for goodness sake. Like, of course it can happen, but in a game which feels so exploitative anyway, as part of a wider system exploiting these players, is just, for me, that's frustrating.
And I want to stress that I'm totally with you on this. What you're saying is my opinion too. For the sake of, we're having a conversation, so let me present the other side. Often when I used to do my Football First podcast last year, and I moaned so much about international breaks, I often had people say to me, James, it's all well and good for you as an Arsenal fan, but other people are big England fans and maybe big fans of international football. And, they're thinking, well, we already don't get to see the football we really want to see as much as you guys do. So there is that side. I understand there is a pressure for international football, but the wider point is, like you said, there's ultimately too much football. We are one of the countries that has 2 cup competitions.
And I'd also, sorry to cut you off, I'd also argue, James, that the reason the World Cup is special is because it's every 4 years. This is my point about the reason that things are special and have a specialness around them is because they're limited. It's because they're finite. If we had the Premier League, if Arsenal played every single day, I guarantee you the interest would just It's the fact that it is once a week and you have that time, whatever. If they played you couldn't keep up. There'd just be too much going on. And that's the thing with international football. Okay, you may want more of it, but at what point does that just become too much?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a few more angles that we should explore on this. I mean, Dave Jordan, who's been supporting and watching a lot of content I do for many years, so thank you for tuning in, Dave. He says, injuries happen, get over it. And you know what? I want to say that this was actually my reaction to the Merino news. Not that I wasn't disappointed, but my brain just went, oh God, that's just so unfortunate. First training session, but wanting 8 6'4" players to make our starting 11 going out on the weekend means that they're also training. And if we want them to get to those fitness levels, and they're probably training quite hard, and I just assume that injuries can happen in training, and it's annoying, but I can brush it off as whatever. I think the real frustration is, again, the placement of these international games in an international break that's so early into a season that has just followed another, big grueling competition that lasted a month, of which, the likes of Calafiori only played 3 games, to be fair, for Italy. But, Rice and Saka went all the way for England. Merino would be playing with Spain again if he hadn't had his injury with Arsenal. It's frustrating that they've gone off and played football that feels, again, meaningless, especially for this point in the season. Now, if you want to squeeze those games somewhere else in a longer international break, somewhere later in the season, then that's a discussion to be had. It's very much the placement and the timing that feels so frustrating when clubs have only just got these players back. I mean, Arteta's probably only been working with Rice 3 weeks before he's kind of back off with England again. So there's an issue there in terms of welfare and all that. So, and I know when we say welfare, listen, I understand they're very looked after and luxury and all that. I get it, but still, they're finely tuned athletes, and it's not really ideal, the situation they're kind of put through when it comes to these international breaks so early into the season. That's the frustrating thing for me, to see Calafiori and Odegaard pick up these injuries at this particular moment. We've still got Rice and Saka who are going to play more football for England, and it's just like, oh my god! Like I can make peace of the Marino one, but this is why I'm so frustrated that it's the timing and the nature of this one that's just like, I mean, come on! Like, are we going to do anything about this in future?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just want to come to a few of your comments. So, like, a couple of people saying, like, Georgia used Nations League to reach the last Euros. It's not meaningless. This match isn't meaningless for a nation like Norway. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying who it's meaningless for is Bukayo Saka. It's meaningless for Declan Rice, because like England should be able to get through. Like, I'm. If UEFA want to expand, I'm not necessarily against that. I'm not necessarily against the FIFA Club World Cup. I'm saying what you can't do is spread players even thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. Bukayo Saka had 2.5 weeks off. So maybe the game isn't meaningless to other people, but to Bukayo Saka, how is he meant to maintain that level? And to him, for his at his level, which is what we're talking about, for someone like him, that is ultimately like it's what is it? 2 + 1 doesn't, whatever the phrase is, like two divided by, you know what the maths phrase is. Anyway, it doesn't go into it. It doesn't make sense. He needs to, like, England should be able to get through in the Nations League without Bukayo Saka. Who is thinking about his welfare? We have to.
And Jorn Helga, thank you for your comment, because and I think this is what we were alluding to. Like, it's all well and good us saying, you know, we'll yank Odegaard out of these, you know, these games. He's going to want to play. He might only be feeling 80% fit, but he wants to. Is he the Norway captain? I believe he is. Like he wants to wear the armband and lead his nation out. We totally understand that. My issue isn't actually there's too many games, and that's a thing. But then you exacerbate that by then the placement of it and when it's taking place. So no one can argue to me reasonably that these international games had to happen this early in the season, but this has been a tradition for a long time, and it's extremely frustrating. So trust me, I get both sides of it, but it's the timing that's really, really frustrating when it comes to this one. And people have been talking about it for a while, and players are speaking out about how much football there is, and we're not really listening to them properly. Another thing that's I'll see if I can find some comments that have brought this up, and I know we've got super chats, which we will definitely get to. I want to float this. Some people are taking the approach of, well, make your bed and lie in at Arsenal. Like, you let Smith Rowe go, you let Vieira go, you thinned the squad. And before I get your thoughts on it, I don't want to come across as a hypocrite on this by ranting about something that I was kind of praising a week ago. I did a video analysing Arsenal's squad, and my takeaway from it was there are less numbers, but it's a squad that Arteta trusts more of. So where we had maybe 23, 24 outfield players last season that Arteta probably went, I trust 14, 15 of them. Probably 15 of them. I reckon it's a smaller squad of about 20, 21 outfield players, of which he trusts genuinely 18, I think. Like, I think that's where our squad has improved, that the numbers are shorter. But Odegaard was one area of question, because it's a case of you lose Odegaard and, well, are you trusting a 17-year-old in Nwaneri? Are you trusting someone who, let's be completely frank, has failed in midfield in Havertz, but done brilliantly up front? People are suggesting Saka as the right 8. We'll come to solutions, but do you lose sympathy from Arsenal from a squad planning perspective at all? Do you think we could and should have done more to prepare?
Look, I still think this is, and we're not going to go back over it, but I still think this swims in the water of everything we've just said about spreading players too thin. But look, ultimately you are going to be reliant on players. Like, you are, like City would miss Erling Haaland. There you go. City would miss Rodri. That would, and if you want the best players in the world, you're going to have to risk not having them at some point. But the reason the best players in the world are the best players in the world is because they're usually available. And Odegaard's been available since whenever. By the way, I feel like we're slightly catastrophizing because, that's what we do. It could be, having looked at it, I doubt it, but it could be a 2-3 week injury and he might be back. Who knows? He might be back on the bench for City. Who even knows? But,
and Alex, can I jump in on that bit for a sec, really quickly, about the catastrophize? I can't say the word.
Easy for you to say.
Because I felt that Arsenal, well, two things to say to this. I felt Arsenal fans were a little in uproar over the way the transfer window ended and the Brighton draw, and I thought, I'm glad I've picked this week to be on holiday. Life isn't as bad as everyone thinks. So I actually agree with that. We do have a tendency to kind of go a bit nuts about it. But which I understand. I actually understand the frustrations, but I didn't feel quite as sort of strongly and frustrated, maybe sort of sitting on a beach with a vodka coke in my hand sort of helps that.
But ultimately, mate, like, okay, we should have found a backup for Odegaard. Okay, who is good enough to come in and play and do what Odegaard does? Tell me.
Well, unless Arteta thinks Nwaneri's ready.
Well,
like, I mean, that's
and then we have different conversations about solutions. Yeah,
absolutely. But the other thing I was going to say, and I know how this is going to sound, people, but let me land. I'm obviously not Martin Odegaard, and I'm obviously never playing football to the level he is. Obviously, I know. Breaking news.
James isn't Martin Odegaard.
I'm not. I know, and I know Odegaard himself is watching this, going,
"You better look him."
Crazy. Well, thank you. Let's not tell him though. But I was playing like 8-a-side the other day. This is actually like 3-4 weeks ago, and I rolled my ankle. Rolled. It just went. And for 2 days, I couldn't walk. I was like, I might need to see someone about this. By the third day, because it's when you twist an ankle, whatever, like you basically pull it. There's a swelling, and I went to physio, and he said, you'll be fine. Give it a few days, blah blah. And 3 days after, I was walking on it. Okay, fine. Like, what I'm trying to say is, you can have injuries where it feels for 2-3 days like it's the worst thing ever. And then very quickly, again, the swelling goes down and, you stretch it out a little bit, and he'll have all the best medical attention and he'll be fine. So it's not the end of the world saying that what James is saying is Odegaard will be ready for the North London derby. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's very possible, especially with these kind of like, I don't know. We need to ask an expert. I'm just thinking he could be fine.
Yeah, it's possible. And also, I think when you watch the injury, it doesn't do like a foot, like it's obviously an unnatural movement, but it's not that bad. Like, I've seen worse.
Yeah, exactly. I think also is when all the reports were coming out sort of saying, he walked off crying. Like, it adds to that kind of sense of like, and it's like, whoa, like, you start thinking the player must think it's really bad because players do in that moment sometimes know. But I mean, look, we hope he's all right. Let's talk with 7 minutes to go solutions, and we'll go to super chats as well in a sec, guys. I've thrown out Nwaneri there, but look, I'll put you on the spot. Like, what would you do in this situation? You've got the North London derby, and what is, in my opinion, even without seeing him play, our best midfield three missing. What would you do?
Project transition. The way we beat Spurs last time, and I was already slightly on this. The two things. Well, one's my point, one's George Vucic's point, which is a very good one. With the way we beat them last time was transitions. I felt if you think about that Saka goal and stuff, I would fully commit to that. We as Arsenal fans, what we want is 60-70% field tilt. We want to sit there on the edge of their box. We want to break them down, cut back, Saka 2-0. Thank you. See you later. That's not going to happen. That's not going to, or maybe get a little set piece 3-0. That's not going to happen. I think we're going to have to soak up a little bit of pressure. We do have Raheem Sterling, who I think can help us on the transition, getting us up the pitch, not necessarily putting the ball in the back of the net. That's a different conversation. And this is George's point, which is a good one. Where Spurs do struggle is in the wide areas when they're pulled out. So firstly, because their fullbacks go and sit in the clock end. And secondly, because their centre-backs are great vertically, but when they're pulled out wide, they can be got at. They can jump too quickly. They can be got over their shoulder. They're obviously rapid, but I think they jump a little bit. So I'd be interested in breaking on them quickly, getting them out to the wide areas, trying to beat them in those wide areas. With Saka, with Sterling, we've got that quality. If you're asking me for a lineup, I'm very interested. But look, there is absolutely a world of Partey, Havertz, Waneri, which is not an ideal. It's not ideal. We've also got Jorginho. We've also got Trossard in there. I don't think he'll do like a Saka right 8 thing. I don't think that'll happen. I really can see Waneri playing a part in this. I think also Gabi Jesus is fit, so I think that sort of reduces the pressure on Havertz and Trossard and so on and so forth, who might come back into the midfield. I think there's options here, and we also have options off the bench. I think we're not absolutely done, which is quite exciting considering our number 3, our first 3 midfielders are all out, and we can put out a team that looks fine. I don't think he'll play Partey as an 8 or anything, so I think it will be one of Partey and Jorginho, and then one of Havertz, Trossard, and Waneri for the 2 there, which isn't ideal. But look, as we say, I just think we need to commit to doing something slightly differently. Mikel,
Sure.
I've said this before on a couple of streams. Like, I think this was the perfect game to sort of launch a surprise anyway, do something a little bit different. Because before today, I guarantee you, and something like a Timber to midfield, and will have been prepping, because this is such a Mikel thing, for a Havertz, Odegaard, Partey midfield. He would have been prepped, because that's what Mikel does. He defers to the seniority every single time. He defers to what he knows, and that's absolutely fine. What I'd love is to see, a Timber in midfield alongside a Havertz and Partey, or whatever. Like, do something a little bit different. Throw them something. Instead of making this a disadvantage, or we're going to hide and we're going to put someone in an uncomfortable position, we're going to try something. You know what I mean? We're gonna put something on you. We're gonna say, here's a new option. Here's a new question we're gonna ask you. And I'd love that to happen.
Apparently, the Norway coach is saying that could be a small ankle sprain. Thank you, Yamal, for sharing that with us. I completely agree with you. I think for me, there's 2 ways Arteta can approach this. So one is going for the midfield you suggested, which was Havertz, Partey, Waneri was, I think, one you threw out there.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
And I think that is the one that sticks closest to what we know in terms of the profiles he's used in midfield. So you've got the off-the-ball runner, the high presser, and Havertz in the left 8, and the physicality, and you still have 2 6-foot-plus, monsters in the centre of the park, and Havertz and Partey. You've got Partey to play through as your 6, and Waneri to try and, do the Odegaard 4-4-2 press, but also try to replicate that. So I think you could do that. And I think this is one of those where I would be surprised. I mean, obviously, touch wood, things don't go so horribly wrong that I regret these words, but because of the, let's call it, mini injury crisis we have in midfield, there's not a lot Arteta could do that I would be like really disappointed with. I understand that none of the solutions are perfect. So that's one I'd understand. Let me throw this out to you. And this is thinking of it exactly the way you said. What hurt Spurs last season was transition. And also, what was our go-to setup in big games from January 24 onwards? It was actually the 4-4-2 build-up, where we weren't inverting a fullback and we created the box with the front 2. Is there a world in which Partey and Jorginho play close together as a 2, like Rice and Jorginho did at times? Sterling and Saka are your outlets, and actually go Trossard and Havertz.
Yep.
You almost go old school 4-4-2, and they take turns dropping it. And then you've got your height, you've got your physicality, you've got Trossard being clinical, but you've got the transition. You're not forcing a 17-year-old to make his first Premier League start in the North London derby away from home, albeit what a show of faith that would be. And I bet he'd ball out as well. But I kind of think he would, wouldn't he? But that's like a solution I could see. And obviously, if Calafiori's fit, I'd want to see him as like a left-footed, beat the press option, who would be great. But that's kind of where I'm favoring at the moment.
Yeah. Look, we're all frustrated by this. No one's lying, but that conversation has been had. We're talking solutions, and I see it as, look, you can write it on a tea towel, but every setback is an opportunity for a comeback. It's like we've got an opportunity here to do something that Spurs don't expect, and I'd be quite interested in that. I quite like the replicating the dynamics thing, and I think Waneri would ball out, but I think Arteta generally defers to seniority. And we can work out a way of getting Partey, Jorginho, Trossard, Havertz, Jesus in that team, Saka, Sterling. Like, there's 100% a way of doing that. And I like that idea. Yeah, the sort of double pivot. I'd want Partey more on the slant, to be honest. But if he's up for it, if you think physically, and also game after Rice is back, like we can slightly have a bit of we can have a bit of a right. If you put in a proper shift today, you won't. You only have to play 60 minutes against Atalanta, whatever it might be. So and then hopefully, if the Odegaard thing isn't too bad, he's at least on the road to recovery. So yeah, look, it's really frustrating. I'm really frustrated. Obviously, I think the window thing. The problem is people will say, well, why we haven't necessarily discussed this angle. Why do we get rid of Smith Rowe? Why do we get rid of Vieira? Look, when 30 whatever million pounds on the table for Smith Rowe, you take that. That's out the window, to be honest, in my opinion. Vieira's the only one. But realistically, be honest, if Vieira was in our squad right now, would you be, and this had happened, would you be saying he's a dead cert guaranteed for the North London derby? I wouldn't. I'd still be looking at other solutions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making that point, because I totally agree. My instinct was to go, oh, if only I had Smith Rowe and Vieira. And then I'm like, wait, so what if we did have them? Because I still think I'd prefer the Trossard Havertz solution. The bench would look a bit better. I'm not sure. Salah-Dean wouldn't do what Vieira might offer. And by the way, this is coming from a Vieira fan. I think his final ball's brilliant, but the North London derby requires more than that. If we were playing Bournemouth at home on the weekend, but I like Bournemouth, good team, then I'd be going, obviously Vieira plays that game or whatever. But this particular situation we're in, I don't really know how you solve the absence of Odegaard without being quite creative. And I think just chucking Vieira in there. Smith Rowe, I mean, look at the goal he scored for Fulham. It was off the left, wasn't it? And Arteta never really used him in that area. So I'm not really longing for them too much. But I think the question of, why didn't we go pick up an Eze? Why didn't we really think that adding someone who could do something else centrally was an option? I don't know. Especially when the forward addition was a loan signing ultimately. So I understand why there's a feeling of, did we leave it all out there in the transfer window? No, probably not. But I also don't want to dwell on that with every game this season, because it's done now. So let's kind of see.
Also, just on the Eze thing, his best work comes inside. That's not what our left winger does, and he'd probably play left 8. You really think Mikel Arteta, Mr. Duels, is going to say a Rice, Odegaard, Eze midfield? No chance. No chance. So, what I think is really going to work this season is Rice, Mourinho, Odegaard. I really do. And then pulling out with various different versions in that. But that is going to absolutely cook. I promise you. And we just don't have it available. And that's really frustrating. 100% hear that. There's a bigger conversation, but come on. Neither Smith Rowe or Vieira would have started this game regardless. So,
and 2 weeks ago, I was thinking, well, I mean, that will probably be our midfield 3, but we've lost one to a freak injury in training, one to an international break injury, and another to probably the most ludicrous second yellow card I've ever seen in my life. So thank you, Chris Kavanagh. Look, everyone, thank you so much for all your comments and super chats as we've tried to dissect this as efficiently as possible. Alex, thanks for joining me as well. Let's go through these super chats. Celt FIFA, if I pronounced that correct, says Norway needs Nation League for playoff to World Cup 26. Fair enough. And of course, that's the context we all understand. But
I just want to absolutely stress, when I say meaningless, I mean for the players that are involved, who are playing in the top level. Other nations need that. And that's fine. But then if you're going to do that for the players playing at the top level in the Premier League and so forth, playing 60, 70 games a season at the absolute peak of their powers at the highest intensity level, they don't work together. You have to do something about that. You can't expect them to do that as well.
Says bit of planning nightmare for Ange too, no? Sure, let's take that. I love the coaching.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe. Says, thanks for always supporting the channel. I appreciate it. Suj, and to you. He says, big up James and Alex. People hit the like, subscribe bar. Thank you to both the Goonerverse and the Different Knock. Love for the love. And I know you did a fantastic video on Declan Rice the other day. Everyone, go check it out, because some of the nonsense around Declan Rice, I had to address it in my video today as well, briefly. All the nonsense, and then the Ballon d'Or nomination. There you go. We love to see it. KD says, question to both. Does being classy more important than being current / winning trophies? Sometimes we have to be pragmatic. Who says if we withdraw we aren't classy? Does City or Liverpool get called out? No, but I get your point. You answer that one, Alex. Is kind of more your point.
Well, we haven't got time to do this, but there's a whole conversation about where you want to be as a club. Like where do we want to be in 10 years? I want to be looking back at the Ballon d'Or nominations this year and go, yeah, that was the start of Arsenal getting 2 or 3 players in the Ballon d'Or nominees every single year. I don't want this to be a good era for Arsenal. I want this to be the start of us establishing ourselves as the London club, the club in the, you know, if what happens to City should happen, there's a huge opportunity, is there not, to establish a huge era of dominance? Am I wrong? Who's best placed after City? It's us. It's an opportunity. So in that conversation, then you have to start acting properly like a big club. And we are in loads and loads of different ways. But there's the little stuff. There's, you know, did you see AFC James tweeted out a clip of the United players surrounding the referee when there was a penalty? Did you see the clip?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we do that, but there are the dark arts of the games. There's the Rodri tactical fouls. There's the pulling people out of internationals. There's the media mind games. There's all that sort of stuff. We're a very classy club, and I love, or we think we are. I really like that, and I want to keep that. And you can be classy and be competitive at the same time. It's positive.
Yeah, I hear it. I think Ben White is the closest to getting that right. Sadiq says, some supporters giving up on the season because of Odegaard injury. How realistic is it to have key players fit every season? Others have to step up. And Sadiq, I completely and utterly agree with you on that. Malaki says, Partey, Jorginho, Trossard thoughts. Well, that's kind of what I suggested there with Trossard. Havertz as almost a front two and a 4-4-2 build up and 4-4-2 off the ball. So, yeah, certainly something that I could see potentially happening. Maisie, hope I pronounced it correctly, says Moneri can cover. That's why he didn't go on loan. And I like this from Chaitanya. Show character, Chuck Waneri in. I'm telling you now. The little I know of Waneri, like the confident guy, like it's his job. Like Waneri's going to want to. He's going to want to play. He's going to absolutely want to play. Another solution, Sterling in the 10. Like, and now we're entering kind of like, is there a formation switch? We've kind of strictly played 4-3-3 on the ball, 4-4-2 off the ball, or, you know, inverting the fullback, whatever it might be. Is there another way you can get 3 chaos players? Can you get Martinelli, Sterling, Saka all behind Havertz, just running off his link-up play, just combos galore, transitions galore, moments like that? But it would just be so far from what Arteta's done in the last few years that I don't see us kind of cooking up a system on the ball that allows us to do that suddenly. But maybe off the ball, there's something in that. Last super chat's just flown in from Mohammed. Says, if Rice, Marino, Odegaard are your starting 3, this means your backups are 2 6s and only 1 17-year-old 8. How is that for squad planning? Havertz doesn't count as one of your 9s. Yeah, Mohammed, but I get you. It's not ideal squad planning, but you can't say that Rice, Marino, Odegaard, Jorginho, and Partey as 5 for 6 positions aren't good options. That's very good options. Very few clubs will have a list of midfielders that good. Probably City definitely do have better than that, but I wouldn't trade our midfield options for anyone else, albeit we haven't seen Marino kick a ball for us. And then the question is, how good is Waneri? Well, in pre-season he looked great. If he looks that good playing in the Premier League, then you can call him a 17-year-old all you want. I'm calling him a great player who can step in and contribute. So we'll learn something. But you might be right. You might be wrong. Look, we will see.
If City lose De Bruyne, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, they look weaker, and their backups are, you know, McAtee, whatever his name is. Like that's ultimately, to win things, you have to rely on players, and we've relied on players and got burnt. Yeah, okay, but there's no choice. There isn't 2 ways. There's not the one where you get 2 sort of £30 million assets and they can kind of, you know, fight it out. You have to get an £100 million asset and say, look, if he drops out, fine, we have to find a different solution. And that's what's happened to us.
And by the way, I don't, for what it's worth, I mean, I'm trying to sort of, you know, justify the club squad building there a little bit. For what it's worth, I don't think we left it all out in the transfer market. I don't think we did enough. That is my opinion. But I also don't think it's as horrible as kind of everyone thinks when it comes to our options. So just trying to bring a bit of balance to that. Alex, man, thank you so much for joining me.
You missed super chat, babe.
Oh, did I? Oh, my God. I'm a terrible person. Yes, I did. Sam, flying at the last minute, but thank you. If Ethan can get minutes now with Odegaard injured, you might as well... Oh, do you mean if Ethan can't get minutes now with Odegaard injured, he might as well leave because he won't play look great in preseason. It's time to step up now. Again, that feels a bit too far for me. Like, I don't think dropping him to the North London derby is, I don't think if Arteta doesn't play him, then that's like a really bad sign that his development isn't here at Arsenal. But if Odegaard's out for a prolonged period, a few months, and when he doesn't see the pitch, that's really concerning from a squad building and trust perspective. So, yeah. Alex, did you want to add anything to that? Or you happy
to? He's 17.
yeah.
He's 17. It's like the Max Dowman. Someone was, and this person, I'm not blaming them, but they're going, "Oh, you're going to make a video about Max Dowman, bro? He's 14. Like, let's chill. Like, it's they've got time. They've got time."
Agreed. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining. There'll be a video on Max Dowman coming tomorrow on the channel. That drops around 2 p.m. That's a joke, by the way. And his screen is frozen. Oh, maybe it didn't freeze.
I was reading a comment. Someone was slagging me off. Sorry, go on.
I made a joke and I was hoping to laugh.
Oh no, what did you say? Say it again.
I said the video Max Dowman.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't listening. I'm really sorry. Do it again. I'll laugh.
Fine. Okay. And everyone, the video Max Dowman drops tomorrow. Do you get it? Because you just said he's 14.
Hey.
Yeah. It's good. Very good. Please don't slag Alex off in the comments. But do go subscribe to the Different Knock and the Different Knock Live, because you're always doing tremendous comment. And I love listening to you and Rohan chop it up on a Thursday night with some fantastic debate and banter as well. So I'm sure everyone is subscribed, but thank you. Mate, absolute pleasure. I'll see you soon, yes?
Love you.
In a bit. Bye, everyone. Thanks. In a bit. Bye-bye.